Welcome back to Wiki Wasteland. They did some changes to the article. They made some changes. So what I was gonna read ended up not being what I was gonna read. But I'm gonna just go a little bit further down, and I'm just gonna jump right into the actual video games. And this is Academic Developments, 1960s, Space War and PDP-1 Innovations. Space War was developed in 1962 by Steve Russell and a group of collaborators at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. I'm sure everybody's heard of that, including Martin Greats, Wayne, there's two eyes in that, Wee Tannen, Peter Sampson, and Dan Edwards on the Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC, PDP-1 mini computer. Never heard of it. The project originated as a demonstration program for the newly installed PDP-1 at MIT's Dynamic Modeling Group, where Russell, inspired by the epic battles in EE, Doc Smith's Linsman series of science fiction novels. I've never heard of that. I'm going to have to look those up. Aimed to create an interactive simulation of interstellar combat. Initial coding began in late 1961 with the first playable version completed by early 1962, marking a collaborative effort among MIT's hacker community who refined the program through iterative improvements. The game's core mechanics featured two players controlling dueling spaceships in a real-time battle on the PDP-1's Vector Cathode Ray Tube CRT display, simulating orbital physics around a central star with realistic gravity effects. Each spaceship was equipped with propulsion thrusters for movement and rotation, limited fuel supplies, and the ability to fire torpedoes that followed curved trajectories influenced by the gravitational field. Players could also activate a hyperspace jump for temporary evasion. So was this before or after Star Trek? Though it carried the risk of reappearing in a hazardous position. Controls initially relied on the PDP-1's front panel switches, which proved cumbersome, promoting the team to build custom joysticks and additional control boxes to enhance playability. Innovations that represented early experiments in human-computer interactions for gaming. The display included an astronomically accurate starfield background added by Peter Sampson to provide visual context, emphasizing the game's roots in scientific computing. Following its debut at MIT's 1962 Science Open House, where it captivated visitors, the source code for Space War was freely distributed via paper tapes and DEC's user group, Decus, proceedings reaching approximately 50 PDP-1 installations worldwide. This open sharing fostered a nascent hacker culture. I don't know what that word is. Nascent, whatever. As users at universities and research labs modified the code to add features like multiplayer support for up to 8 players, sound effects, or variant gameplay modes, laying groundwork for community-driven software development. Despite its influence, Space War remained non-commercial as the PDP-1's high cost, around $120,000 per unit, limited access to well-funded institutions, preventing widespread consumer adoption. That's a lot of money for a video game, man. I wouldn't pay that. I think we're headed there. I think first we get $80, and then we get $100 games, and then next is $120,000 games, going full circle. As the first widely influential digital game, Space War demonstrated the feasibility of real-time vector graphics and competitive multiplayer interaction on a digital computer, inspiring subsequent innovations in interactive entertainment and computing interfaces. It highlighted the PDP-1's capabilities for dynamic simulation, shifting perceptions of computers from purely analytical tools to platforms for creative expression and social play. Other university projects beyond the eventual I can't read. Beyond the influential graphical action games like Space War, other academic projects in the 1960s explored text-based simulations and resource management, laying groundwork for strategy and simulation genres through interactive computing on early mini computers. I like me some mini computers, but what do they mean by mini computers? You mean like the size of a room? Is that considered mini, or like a little box like we see today? One notable example is Hammurabi, developed in 1968 by Doug Diamond at Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC, as a demonstration program in the Focal language for the PDP-8 mini computer. Focal? I'm going to say Focal. It's probably Focal, though. This text-based game simulated ancient Babylonian resource management, where players acted as king, making decisions on buying and selling land, feeding the population, and dealing with random events like plagues over 10 turns. All output via teletype terminals. That kind of sounds like RimWorld. This was the original version of RimWorld. Great game, by the way. I highly recommend. It served as a precursor to modern strategy games by emphasizing decision-making under uncertainty and resource allocation, influencing later titles through its simple yet engaging mechanics. In 1969, Jim Storer created Lunar Lander. Hey, I know this one. Initially titled Lunar Landing Game and Focal for the DEC PDP-8, inspired by the Apollo 11 moon landing. Players guided a lunar module to a safe touchdown by inputting thrust amounts at timed intervals, managing velocity, altitude, and limited fuel against realistic gravity physics displayed in text form on a teletype. This simulation highlighted early computational modeling of physical principles and influenced subsequent arcade games such as Atari's 1979 Lunar Lander by popularizing the challenge of precise control in a hazardous environment. A broader context for these innovations was provided by DARPA-funded initiatives, of course, DARPA, with all the military technology, like the Plato system, initiated in 1960 at the University of Illinois under Donald Bitzer. More like Donald Bitcher, am I right? If it was at Illinois, haha. Okay. Which advanced computer-assisted instruction through shared terminals connected to the ILIAC-1 mainframe, supported by ARPA, DARPA's predecessor, NSF, and other agencies. Plato enabled early interactive graphical applications among students. By the 1970s, it included simulations and rudimentary games on plasma display terminals, fostering collaborative computing environments that influenced educational and recreational software development. There's so many big words. Like, look at how many big words are in this sentence. These projects collectively demonstrated the versatility of university and research lab computing for non-commercial interactive entertainment, emphasizing simulations, AI-like decision systems, and multi-user engagement. Commercialization and spread. Late 1960s to 1970s with the first arcade games. The transition to commercial arcade games began in 1971 with the development of coin-operated machines designed for public venues, adapting academic concepts into profitable entertainment hardware. I wonder what started first. It was like pinball machines and stuff. I guarantee. The earliest such effort was the Galaxy game, created by Bill Pitts and Hugh Tuck at Stanford University. Installed in September 1971 at the Tresidder Union, that's how I'm saying it, Union Coffee House on campus. This two-player space combat game was a direct adaptation of the 1962 academic program Space War, featuring competing spaceships that players could maneuver and fire upon using vector displays driven by a single PDP-11 mini computer. The prototype hardware cost approximately $20,000 to build, with games priced at 10 cents per play or 3 for 25 cents. That is so much money. But also, just to build a game, I don't know, it's probably not that much money, especially compared to nowadays. I don't know what this converts to with modern inflation. To build approximately $20,000 to build, with games priced 10 cents per play or 3 for 25 cents. And it quickly gained popularity among students, generating enough revenue to cover costs within months despite its high developmental expense. Although not mass produced for widespread distribution, the Galaxy game demonstrated the appeal of coin operated video entertainment in a social setting, predating broader commercialization by serving as a localized proof of concept. Shortly after, in November 1971, Nutting Associates released Computer Space, the first mass-produced coin-operated video arcade game developed by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney. What are these names, man? People have like ridiculous names. Why can't it be like Todd Smith or something? Through their short-lived partnership, Sizigi? Sizigi? I don't know. Sizigi and Sizigi Engineering. This single-player adaptation of Space War pitted the user against AI-controlled enemy ships in a black and white space battle where players rotated and thrust their saucer-shaped craft while avoiding or destroying opponents amid scrolling starfields and flying saucers. I like me some flying saucers. Why are all these like space games and like aliens and stuff? Is that just where military goes to immediately, is fighting aliens? The hardware relied on discrete transistor logic. I don't know what that is. Transistor logic. Say that fucking 5 times fast. TTL circuits without a microprocessor generating raster graphics, or do you mean faster graphics directly onto a standard television monitor for display? Man, I'm losing it. I'm losing the words. Which kept costs manageable compared to computer-based systems. Each coin-operated cabinet cost around $1,000 to produce, making it feasible for arcade operators to purchase and install in bars, restaurants, and amusement venues, and straight-up arcades. Just arcades with arcade machines and pizza. That's more like the 80s and 90s, though. Computer Space achieved modest commercial success, with Nutting Associates selling approximately 1,500 units, which, while not a blockbuster, validated the market potential for video-based arcade games amid skepticism from traditional electromechanical game manufacturers. The game's reception highlighted challenges like its complex controls and steep learning curve, which intimidated casual players accustomed to simpler pinball machines, but it nonetheless earned steady quarters in high-traffic locations and influenced the industry's shift toward electronic video entertainment. This experience prompted Bushnell to co-found Atari in 1972, so that's when Atari started, focusing on simpler designs to capture wider appeal and accelerate arcade video game adoption. Emergence of home consoles. And this is where I really know my history, is the home console market, like the 80s and 90s in particular. The development of home video game consoles began in the late 1960s with pioneering work by engineer Ralph Baer at Sanders Associates, where he created the brown box prototype between 1967 and 1968. This device utilized analog hardware to generate simple games such as table tennis directly on a standard television screen, marking the first attempt to integrate interactive entertainment into home TVs. Baer's invention culminated in U.S. patent 3,728,480, filed in 1971 and issued on April 17, 1973, which described the television gaming apparatus capable of producing video signals for multiple games without requiring a computer. But wouldn't it technically count as a computer, though? Building on this prototype, Sanders Associates licensed the technology to Magnavox, leading to the release of the Magnavox Odyssey. I used to have one of those. In September 1972, as the world's first commercial home video game console, priced at around $100. What happened, man? We're getting them for almost $1,000 now. The Odyssey hooked up to the televisions via RF and offered 28 built-in games, including simulations like Shooting Gallery, through physical switches and analog circuits rather than programmable software. It relied on transparent plastic overlays applied to the TV screen for visual enhancements and included accessories such as jump cards, small circuit cards that altered gameplay rules, along with dice, score pads, and play money to simulate board game elements, as the system lacked built-in sound, color, or on-screen scoring. Despite these limitations, Magnavox sold approximately 350,000 units by 1975. That's not very many, actually, but I guess in an emerging market where nobody knows exactly what any of this is, and it's kind of just a lame toy. 350,000 units by 1975, establishing a modest consumer market for home gaming. The success of Atari's arcade Pong in 1972 catalyzed further innovation in home systems, prompting Atari, founded in June 1972 by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney, to enter the consumer market with a dedicated home version of Pong in late 1975. I had one of those also, where it was just Pong, just a Pong machine. Released initially through Sears as the Telegames Video Pong under the name Heavy Sixer. I didn't have that one. What I had was actually called Pong, and it had like the paddles. This console connected to TVs and used custom integrated circuits to deliver Pong and 5 variations with on-screen scoring and basic sound. Yeah, I didn't have that. Simplifying setup compared to the Odyssey. Unlike its arcade counterpart, the Home Pong was a dedicated device without programmability, but its widespread availability through retail channels and licensing agreements with manufacturers like Sears drove significant sales growth. I actually think that's where I got mine, was from Sears, but I didn't get it from Sears myself. My grandpa got it and had it before I was born, obviously. Where was I? Blah, 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 blah. The dedicated device without programmability, but its widespread availability through retail channels and licensing agreements with manufacturers like Sears drove significant sales growth. By fiscal 1975, Atari reported $39 million in revenue, fueling industry expansion and paving the way for programmable systems like the Atari Video Computer System, VCS, in 1977. And it wouldn't be long after that that gaming had a major crash and wouldn't come back until the NES. And that's where I'm going to leave off this little snippet of video game history. And I'm going to dive into some more video game history very, very soon. I don't know what the next article is going to be like, but I guess you'll find out whenever you come around to watch it. I'll see you in the next one. Definitely go join the Patreon.